We have ourselves some patch notes, and I have to say, overall, they don't look too bad. So these aren't officially patch notes. What we're actually looking at is the developer blog, but they're talking about hero tuning, balance for launch. Those are effectively patch notes, though probably subject to change for October 4th there. So, first thing we're going to see is Junker Queen nerfs. We know that we needed this based on professional play. I'm a little bit worried about her in non-professional play for most of ladder. She was okay. She wasn't like, oh my goodness, unstoppable in regular play. And in professional play, they were able to do a really better job of using her commanding shout there for value in a way that teams are going to spread more on ladder, spread more and quick play, and that's not as powerful. I'm really worried that she's going to be a character that overall, for her duration in Overwatch, is a sort of balanced on the knife's edge character, where either she is on one side of it, where, hey, she's just meta defining and overpowered, or she's kind of below average, and I don't really think you'll be able to keep her average or anything like that. I think it's going to be mostly because of commanding shout. She'll probably serve as a hero that either is just really, really good or not very useful, because either commanding shout is powerful enough for you to run on enemies and do things and your team to just sort of, bulk through things, or it's not and she doesn't really work. So we'll see on that. But that's okay. Let's go ahead and get a little bit into it. What we're seeing specifically is allied health bonus is going down from 100 to 50 HP, so it'll still get her the same amount, but less to her allies. Allied duration reduced from 5 to 3 seconds, which again means hers will last longer for herself. And then temporary health no longer delays over its duration. This doesn't really matter very much. And cooldown increased from 11 to 15 seconds, which this is kind of what I actually worry about and what I think breaks it and puts her on the other side of that knife edge, where hey, it's less bulkier between duration and how much, but B, that's a pretty noticeable cooldown increase for this now smaller ability. Still a very powerful ability in that its temporary health protects people from being shot in every direction, unlike a barrier, and gives them their speed boost and such, but we've increased the cooldown meaningfully. We've gone ahead and decreased the values on it quite a bit. I don't think it's going to be enough tank anymore for the team, enough mitigation for the team, even with the speed in there. But we will see. Overall, I look at this and say, okay, Junker Queen meta, almost certainly over. So we move on from there, and we get temporary health in general now grants 50% reduced ult charge instead of 0 ult charge. And this is a really good change in my opinion. It just felt bad, like with a Zarya beam, to try to melt down a beated team, or a team that had Rally, or a team that had Junker Queen's Shout there, where it just felt bad, like you're doing a ton of damage and you're getting nothing for it other than burning away temporary health that was going to be gone soon anyways. So even just like monkey brain seeing the, hey, my ult charge is going up a little bit, I think that's going to help. I think that's going to feel good. And if we find, hey, no, that adds too many ults back into the game, Overwatch 2 felt so good to some people because there were less ults, more emphasis on neutral play, that sort of thing, I'd actually think this is still a good change, and what you might do if you're finding now there's too many ults would be just do another global ult charge nerf where everyone is generating at all times a little less ult charge, or all ults require a little bit more ult charge to get to 100% to balance out for this fact. But I still think it just felt bad enough for the person shooting into it that this is a good change for how it's going to feel for people. Next, we get into what they've done with role passives. And this I get a little bit worried about. So to start with, they gave damage a new role passive. All heroes now have the 30% swap, so that's just now an Overwatch thing. When you swap, you can retain, up to 30% ult charge there. Fine, we can live with that. Now there's less disincentives to swap, which is something that this game has always suffered with. But the other thing that we look at here is the new damage roll passive is on elimination, not final blow, but elimination. You get a 25% movement speed buff for 2.5 seconds. And this is definitely going to be more helpful for flankers and brawling type DPS than it is going to be for poke DPS. So I see that and I go a little, I don't know about that. just because it's an unequal reward. And I do get worried. When we combine Genji's dash resets on elimination with this, you sort of get into, okay, now your engine has two things increasing. You're getting a cooldown back and you're getting this speed and reload speed increase. And, similar things with Reaper where, hey, you eliminate someone and now you get a 2.5% movement speed boost, and it's just easy to stick to the other person, even if they have boots. Similar thing with a Mei. So I look at this and I get a little bit worried about it. I'm not worried about it from like a total power standpoint, because I actually think if we look at, say, the support passive, it's better than this passive, but we will see. I do also worry how much internal testing was actually done with this. We've done so many iterations of DPS passives, and now we're going into the launch. We're going into Overwatch 2 being live. This isn't really a beta anymore, regardless of what they say. This is, hey, everyone can go play it, and it needs to be good, it needs to be right, and this does feel a little bit like we're throwing stuff at the wall, we're going to keep trying new things, and we're kind of past that stage. So I'm a little bit more worried about this one, and I think this will, help shorter range heroes more than longer range heroes. It also does a little bit of something I don't like, which is if you're in a situation where you're in a 2v1 and your teammate is a bot and your teammate dies, so now it's a 1v1, well, it may now be a 1v1 that you just lose because of the buff that they got. Now, should you have won it while it was a 2v1? Yes, but something that Overwatch 2 seemed to be moving towards or trying to do was making the game feel less like, oh, I have a bad teammate, or oh, my teammate didn't do what I want, so I just lose. It was trying to give more individual control over the match. And if you're in a place where, hey, I just lose because Reaper killed my Mercy and I'm on Zen, and now they can just stick to me and it's over sort of thing, that's not great, because it's not really about the duel anymore there. But we'll see. You know what? You should have won it as the 2v1. So hey. So now we move on to hero-specific changes. Well, I suppose we already talked about Junker Queen, but she was meta-defining, so they called that out. Orisa's getting more bulk. She's getting 25 more HP and 25 more armor. That matters more than you think, because remember, she has Fortify. So she's something where we're looking at, hey, there's a percentage damage reduction, so increasing your health is actually increasing your health by more than the 25 and 25 it looks like there. She's also getting Energy Javelin cooldown, and a noticeable one, from 8 to 6 seconds. This is a pretty sizable buff for Orisa. Now, it doesn't change the fact that she still sort of suffers as a tank from, she has two mitigation things and they're both on reasonably long cooldowns. We didn't adjust the cooldowns on either of those, and so she sort of has to use one to get in, the other to get out, or one to get in, one to sustain, or get in naturally and then have two. But she can't like block things in steps the way a Sigma, a D.Va, even a Reinhardt with a shield can go up down, sort of no real penalty to that thing. So that is still a weakness for her. On the other hand, even more bulk and having the Energy Javelin and, the very brief stun associated with it as a tool, that could be big, because the Energy Javelin almost becomes your, hey, sort of interrupt thing, mitigation tool in some ways, and it is the skill shot. I don't actually think we're going to seriously see it used as a huge mitigation tool other than shutting down ults, but I don't mean, the same way Defense Matrix is to block things in the poke phase. But I look at this and I say, this could now be a thing where Reinhardts, for example, are just very unhappy. But we'll have to see. It may turn her into the premier brawler. It's certainly, I like the direction that they're going with this, both more bulk and more of this. So works for me. D.Va, I don't think this does anything. So what they've done is they've increased her booster damage from 10 to 25. That's basically a reversion, partial reversion. She's getting more damage from her bump back. Micro Missile cooldown reduced from 8 to 7 seconds. As a percentage, that's a decent portion of the cooldown, but I still don't really think it matters. And Call Mech ult cost reduced by 12%, so she can remech faster. That's probably important. She probably needed that in a solo tank world. But I mostly look at this and say, she's still not going to have the level of bulk for jumping into the enemy's core and just fighting that a Reinhardt or a Winston or even a Wrecking Ball does. So I look at this and go, maybe comparable to a Wrecking Ball, but Wrecking Ball is certainly going to get out a little easier. So I look at this and I go, hey, this isn't really gonna change her role. They describe her as increasing the damage on booster impact to add more weight to the rush in moment for her, leaning into her strengths as a fast moving engager he can push deep into the enemy lines. Well, she can't really push into the core that terribly well. Like, she can walk into it. If you've seen Overwatch 1, she'll walk in with a Brig and a Zen, go do that sort of thing. Sure, she can go in as part of a 3 or a 4-man dive too. She can do those things, but she can't really be the spear of a dive, like the main portion of a dive, the way that perhaps a Winston can. She can absolutely fight on the sides, and she's really good at fighting on the sides, going and challenging a soldier, a mercy pocketed Ash, that sort of thing. And this is going to make her even stronger at that, but it's still going to, if that's what she's doing, rather than able to sort of hold up main there the way that a Reinhardt or a Winston or some of these other heroes can, I don't think it's even a Sigma in some ways. I don't think it's really going to change her from a somewhat niche role of, hey, you want her when you're playing maybe poke into dive sort of thing. I don't think she's going to become a generalist like some of the other tanks are off of this, and I think that's going to leave her in an interesting spot if she is this specific matchup tank. And I think her specific matchup is even more limited than Sigma's right now. Brigitte, this is wrong in my opinion. Inspire duration reduced from 6 to 5 seconds. Brigitte is in the Owl meta, the Junker Queen meta, but Brigitte is not defining the Junker Queen meta in any way. So nerfing Inspire from 6 to 5 seconds, that's not really the right play. She's in the meta because she synergizes well with the meta. She fits well into it. Most metas are defined by 1 or 2 heroes that are just run away with it powerful, and then things go into the meta that sort of complement those heroes well that are still pretty okay heroes. Junker Queen is one of those runaway power heroes right now, and Brigitte is working pretty well with what's been built around that, the things that synergize well with it. She is not particularly strong herself. She's not garbage. She's not terrible or anything, but she is just, hey, complementing what is being seen as meta right now, and that's causing her to be played. I actually would say she's, if anything, a tiny bit on the weak side still, but you know what? Not a big deal, especially actually after the nerf that we're having to temporary health that her rally gives. Temporary health is now going to give 50% ult charge. I actually say this is probably too big of a nerf. She didn't need a nerf at all, and this is too big of one, given that she's actually getting 2 with the temporary health nerf, so that it now feeds ult charge. So probably a bad change. Not a fan. Baptiste, Biotic launcher primary fire had its damage increase from 24 to 25, and it had its fall off range increase, so now it's at 25 meters instead of 20. I like this. This is a good buff for Baptiste, and this is a buff in the proper way. This is what he needed. Some of you may have seen some of my previous videos where I really didn't like his instant 100 health if conditions are right thing on regenerative burst. That's too bursty, that's too much instant health, too powerful, and that didn't really fix his problem. This is much more what we needed to do. And if we find this is too powerful and made him too good, I hope we don't partially revert this one and instead revert or partially revert the regenerative burst changes that we saw there. So this, I'm happy to see. Good stuff. Mercy, there's just no fixing at this point. So they're going with the pressing crouch during Guardian Angel now launches you straight up. Angelic Descent can be used by holding crouch. And Angelic Descent is her slow fall. So usually you use jump for that, the same binding. Now crouch will also do it. This doesn't do things. This isn't really going to make anyone happy. I think probably what they need to do at this point. I know they're trying to make Guardian Angel accessible and they're trying to not make it such a niche thing, and I actually think that's kind of appropriate at this point. They're just facing backlash because they left it in the game as a tech, as a bug really, but as a bug that they incorporated but never really made accessible to everyone. It was never that hard, but they never really made accessible to everyone as a hidden part of her kit. This is really a result of them having left it in this state for so long that they're now sort of stuck in this no one is happy thing. Because all the things that make it more accessible are taking away some of the tech options, some of the super jump, height, etc., flexibility things, height and directional flexibility, and that's not fantastic. I think probably what they need to do is something along the lines of, hey, have this easier control where crouch launches you up if that's what you need to do, but maybe actually then once you've launched into the air, make it so crouch increases the rate at which you fall, because now you've given her some of her flexibility back. She can fall at normal speed, she can slow fall, or she can fall at a faster speed, and at least that's a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more slipperiness to make up for some of the slipperiness that would be lost with some of the super jump tech control finesse with the old controls that is being lost here. So maybe that would be the route to know. I'm sure some Mercy specialist has a better solution than this one, but ultimately they want to go with something that's not too clunky, and we've certainly seen a couple clunky iterations, and I think something that's not too clunky is probably going to take away some of the old super jump flexibility that existed, and they're very unlikely to give you an option to go, okay, in the toggle menu, you pick whether you want to do it the new way or the old way, but we'll see. Bastion, I'm fine with this. Bastion is not a good hero, even Overwatch 2 Bastion, so now his Ironclad passive is getting 20%, so he's got that 20% damage reduction while transformed, and that's good. If you understand how Bastion works, his tank mode is a huge pressure cycle thing. It's supposed to be, hey, this happens and you either need to run from it, you need to, retreat from it, get behind cover, or you need to CC him in some way. It's okay with me that trying to burn him through it is now harder, because I think this is supposed to be a really powerful pressure cycle ability that, hey, you're pushing this, the enemy team sort of needs to retreat from it, and then they push in while you don't have it, and you're pretty weak, and you can build heroes like that. Winston is another example of a hero that's like that. His pressure cycle, he's very strong when he's in there cleaving a lot of people with his bubble. When his bubble isn't available, he's a fair amount weaker. Pressure cycle heroes like that are totally fine. I think limiting how much he can be burst down during his tank mode is probably a good change, just to strengthen his pressure cycle on an underperforming hero. If you feel like, oh no, it's damage, I hate it, it's too much, he shouldn't be, defensively strong while doing a bunch of damage, well, play around the cooldown or CC him. You'll figure it out. Reaper, Hellfire Shotgun spread reduced from 8 to 7 degrees. Why? Reaper's like a medium performing hero. Middle of the pack. In my opinion, this is a silly change. We don't need to nerf Reaper here. Maybe they need to nerf it. Maybe they've done their testing and he's getting the nerf here because the DPS passive is good for it. That could be it. Sojourn, railgun energy gain from non-player targets, so barriers, turrets, etc., reduced by an additional 50%. Good change. No complaints there. And then Sombra has her hack ability lockout duration increased from 1 to 1.75 seconds. I worry a little bit about CC creep. I know a lot of people that like Overwatch 2 are like, hey, some of the best thing about it is you feel in control again. You don't feel like your character is constantly taken away from you with CC. So I worry about the CC creep here. And as they do new heroes, as they do more of this, are we just going to see more? If they were going to do this, I'd have preferred to see this increase from 1 to 1.5, experiment with that, and be very hesitant to continue increasing CC, since that seems to be a design goal, to not increase CC too much here. But you guys will have to let me know. Overall, I think this looks like a pretty good patch that we're heading into here. Definitely an over nerf on Junker Queen. I don't think she's going to be dominating the meta anymore. I don't think she really was in regular play. I do really like this ult charge change on temporary health. Yeah, there's some good ones here. I think the Brigitte nerf is silly. Let me know what you guys think. Do you look at this and say, hey, good patch, bad patch? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're enjoying the content, drop a like, consider subscribing for more thought-provoking Overwatch and Overwatch 2 content, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.